Hello, everyone. Welcome back to MLS Moves. We got some news today. We're going to discuss if it's true, fake, likelihood of anything happening regarding this news, and talk about a couple other players and how it affects the club. Inter Miami and Messi. A report came out today about his an update with his extension talks with Inter Miami. So we're going to talk about that. Get your guys' thoughts. We're going to have Favian Renkel come on here probably in the next 15 minutes and talk about this as well. But before we get into that, make sure you like this stream down below, share with a friend, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We are getting closer to 10K subs. We're like 3,300, or a little over 3,300 till 10K, but we're going to hit that number by the end of this year. So much more content to come. It's going to be a great year for MLS and soccer, and there's going to be a lot of transfer news coming this summer. So make sure you subscribe if you haven't already and hit that little bell notification so you never miss a video. Mr. says, hi, Will. Welcome to the late night stream. I know it's late over in the UK. T-Rock says, how's everyone doing tonight? We got some news. We're going to talk about this. So let's go ahead and get into it. So earlier today, I think it's, Jose Armando reported apparently Leo Messi's chances of staying at Inter Miami are 50%. There is no agreement between the two parties yet, as of now. So Messi, his deal runs through 2025. He signed in the summer of 2023, a 2.5-year deal. And part of the deal was he got a share of the MLS season pass subscriptions from Apple TV. He got a share of his jersey sales with Inter Miami. He also got a part ownership in the Inter Miami club when he's done playing, because you can't really own a team while you're playing for them. Has to be after you're done playing. So that was the deal to get him. And then probably like 25, I think his salary is 25, 30 million a year. I thought it was closer to 50, but it's reported to be 20 to 25 million. I think MLS is underreporting what he's actually making. But that was the deal he signed to 2025. Fast forward a couple years, and we heard that he was happy in Miami. He was going to sign an extension at least through 2026 because Inter Miami want him to open up with the new stadium, which apparently, to my surprise, is going to be open at the beginning of the 2026 season. I thought it was going to be the summer, but apparently the new stadium will be open at the beginning of the 2026 season. And this would be an absolute catastrophe if Messi isn't there to open the new stadium. Inter Miami haven't done enough with Messi to where when he leaves, they are still a big relevant club. And I think most of you would agree with that. Do you guys think that if Miami lost Messi right now, they would still be a relevant club? Honestly, do you think they would still be a relevant club? I don't think they would be. They just haven't won enough to be considered one of the big dogs in MLS. Not yet. So they need him to open up that new stadium. Nathan Rink says, hell no. Cute Kenny says, no. I mean, it's true. They haven't done enough yet for that to be the case, right? They need this man, the Argentine legend, the best player in the history of soccer or football, is I think we're going to start calling that in the United States, maybe football. I think the president had made a joke about he didn't know which one to call it. Maybe we'll just start calling it football instead. Either way, you get my point. Best player in the sport, the history of the sport. Okay? And they can't afford to lose him. And I also have this. I'm going to show you guys real quick. This is the Inter Miami roster designations and how long their contract is through. So Jordi Alba, Sergio Busquets, Lionel Messi, and where is he at? Luis Suarez. All of their contracts run through 2025. So the Barca boys are locked in together until 2025. Cringe says no, but if they win MLS Cup and maybe Leagues Cup this year, maybe. But that's a lot. That's a long shot. Yeah, that's going to be tough to do. That's going to be tough. Nathan Rink says probably the most plastic fan base in the league. I don't Miami all plastic. I don't know about that. But they haven't done enough with him here. They've got one Leagues Cup trophy, a Supporters Shield trophy, which, that's not the champion of the league. And that's all they have. And if you see Messi recently, I don't think he's going to leave. I want to preface that. I don't think he's going to leave, but he has all the leverage right now. He has all the leverage because he's out of contract. He's the biggest star in the world. They need him more than he needs them. And if they don't do what he wants, he'll just leave. And there's what club in the world wouldn't want Lionel Messi on their team? Now, I don't think Barcelona could afford him, and he probably wouldn't. I know this is crazy to say, but he probably wouldn't play for them. He wouldn't start at this point. I mean, he's not going to take Lamine Yamal's spot. So he would probably go back to Argentina, honestly. Either way, Messi has all the leverage. He has all the leverage. He doesn't have to sign anything. I remember when he came here in 2023, how big of a deal it was because of the race where everybody was trying to sign him. Was he going to go back to Barcelona? Was he going to go to Saudi Arabia? Was he going to come to Inter Miami and play in MLS? That was the real debate. And I remember no one really knew. I mean, I had heard rumors at the time that he was likely to come to MLS and Inter Miami because of the sponsorship deals, the package that they'd offered him, and the lifestyle that his wife was looking for after being miserable at PSG. But he just doesn't look happy right now. And maybe that's because the team isn't very good around him. But the problem with that is that he kind of built this team around him. He's got all of his guys. And we're going to talk about this too. I want to talk about who you guys would want to keep and who you'd want to get rid of if you were in charge of Inter Miami. But there are guys on this team who are just making way too much money that just aren't doing anything. Michael says, my dude's face is plastered over everything MLS. This would be devastating to their brand. Yeah, we're going to talk about that too, Michael. That's a good point. This would be devastating to their brand. In my opinion, MLS would be better without him. Interesting. Executive producer Herb says, best-selling jersey worldwide. That's huge in a league where numbers talk. I agree with that. Soccer News says, they'll still try to re-sign him no matter what. Of course they will. Of course. Are you talking about Barcelona? Cringe says, I think Messi wants the fans to know he's pissed. It's possible he's using this as leverage to make ownership sign more players. And Mr. Another member of the channel says, I don't think he'll go yet. Like I've said before, he goes anywhere. It'll probably be Newell Old Boys back in Rosario. I agree with that. But here's another thing, too, you got to think about. Think about the leverage he has because the World Cup is in 2026. He would be leaving a year before the World Cup. Well, 6 months before the World Cup because MLS season ends in December officially. So he would be leaving 6 months before the World Cup. He would be leaving before Miami Stadium is built. I mean, he really has all the chips right now. He has all the chips right now. Now, I don't know what else he would possibly want. He's already paid handsomely. He's already going to get part of the team. He already gets a cut of the streaming revenue from Apple TV, which is crazy, right? Not crazy as in he doesn't deserve it. Crazy as in like that's how much pull he has where he can get money like that. What other player in the world could go to a league and say, "Hey, I'm coming to this league. I want a cut of your streaming revenue." How many players could do that? I think maybe he's the only one. I don't think any other player could do that. And then also get a percentage of his jersey sales. I mean, he is just a cash cow for the league, but they've also put him on this pedestal, right? They've put Messi on this pedestal, the league has. And I can't remember who had mentioned this earlier, but talk about plastering his face. I think it was Michael, plastering his face everywhere. Plastering his face everywhere they possibly could to where Inter Miami is probably the most hated team in Major League Soccer. Now, I mean, that's the sense I get. They're the most hated team in Major League Soccer. And when you look at the accomplishments or lack thereof that this team has had since he's been here and how many games he's played, I think he's only played like 30 games for Inter Miami in 2.5 years, or 2 years technically because he's not halfway through the 2023 season. He's only played like 30 games. And when Favi comes on here, we'll talk about this, about the success and how his tenure in Miami will be looked at. But if Messi were to leave in 2025 or after 2025, I would say his stint in the MLS was a failure for Miami, and it was a failure for the league because you cannot say that this league has grown in the time that Messi has been here. Now, is that his fault? No, not entirely. It also has to do with the Apple TV deal and it being behind a paywall and people not being able to see him. But if you are being honest with yourself and you look at the big picture, Messi in MLS has been kind of disappointing. It's been kind of disappointing. Let's read some comments here. Yeah, Cringe says, guys, let's get some likes for Will. Yeah, me and Favi have a goal tonight to hit 100 likes. I don't know how many we're at right now, but make sure you like this video down below if you haven't already and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Tommy, a friend of the channel, says MLS better without him. That's a take. However, MLS hasn't prepared themselves for life after Messi, not promoting many other players. And see, that's another important point, Tommy, is that you would have thought that MLS would have taken this opportunity to get more players recognition playing next to Messi. I remember when I use this example a lot, but I remember when Messi was playing against FC Dallas in Leagues Cup and Alan Velasco was playing for Dallas. And he looked really good in that game against Miami. And then he was talked about. He was kind of, I don't want to say a hot commodity, but he was in the headlines. People were saying, man, this guy's good. Who is this guy? And it got him some recognition. And that's what they should have done, is taken this opportunity to lift other players up. Now, that did happen with players on Miami's team, like Diego Gomez. Diego Gomez playing next to Messi and playing well elevated his stock and ended up getting him sold to Brighton for $15 million. And there needed to be more of that. You needed to have more players' status elevated by playing next to Messi, or their profiles elevated. And another thing that they've done wrong, and I've talked about this too, is, and you can look at this, all these players, this is their roster designations right now, okay? The problem with Inter Miami right now, there's a lot of problems with them. You know, obviously they're not a terrible team, but there's a lot of issues with them. The problem with Inter Miami is that they signed all of Messi's friends who are all old. Messi's old himself, but so are his friends, right? Alba's 35 or 36. Sergio Busquets will be 37 this summer. Luis Suarez is 38 years old. Messi will be 38 years old this summer. What player do they have on this team who is good? Like really good. I'm talking like a top talent, not in top in the world, but, you know, for MLS standards, a top talent in MLS and is in their prime. Either they sign guys who are young, developing, U22 players, or they sign really old players. There's nothing in the middle. They don't have a designated player who's 25, 26, 27 years old who is in their prime and very good. It's either really old or really young. So you have a bunch of inexperienced players or a bunch of guys who just, they're past their prime. They just can't do what they used to do. Luis Suarez has probably had the biggest fall off in 2025 of any player on this team. Sergio Busquets, and we're going to talk about this too, about all these players that are out of contract and who they should bring back. But if Messi's trying to leverage bringing back Sergio Busquets, that's just a bad move. You can't bring back Sergio Busquets on a DP deal. He's making $10 million a year. He's not worth $10 million a year. He's the second highest paid. Well, actually, he's the third highest paid player. He's the third highest paid player in MLS. He's not the third best player in Major League Soccer. You can't bring back a player like that in MLS at $10 million a year at 37 years old. You can't re-sign. Now, if he was willing to take a team-friendly deal, fine, bring him back. That would make sense. But if Messi is leveraging his friends to get new deals, or he won't re-sign, I mean, okay, let me ask you guys, let's get you more involved. If Messi goes to ownership and says, hey, the only way I re-sign with your club is if you bring back Sergio Busquets, Jordi Alba, and Luis Suarez. But Sergio Busquets goes to Jorge Mas and David Beckham and says, hey, I'll come back in 2026. I'll come back in 2027, but I'm not taking a pay cut. So to keep Messi, are you willing to use a DP spot on Sergio Busquets? Are you willing to use a DP spot on Sergio Busquets at this point in his career to keep Messi? Angelo says, "What's the link for that to look at the DP and TAM players or website called?" I'll make sure if you follow me on Twitter, I'll make sure to retweet it here so you can check it out yourself. I'll do that here in a second. I'll do that when Favi hops on here in a little bit. Saul says, "Any word on Pogba to MLS?" There was a team he was linked with recently, DC United. I don't know if that's going to happen. Maybe he hasn't signed with any European team, so anything's possible. Executive producer Herb says, "Worrisome how the Apple deal is aging bad." The Apple deal is aging so bad. You guys have no idea how many people reach out to me and tell me how big of a disaster it's been for MLS. I'm not going to share what I was told specifically, but I heard some numbers of like a game last year, the viewership numbers of a game last year that are so bad, they're almost hard to believe. Really, it's not. Let's see. Really says, "I think he will stay." Francisco says it's a package deal. I says, "To me, Inter Miami isn't built to work together. It's Messi and friends versus young players trying to move to Europe and showcase their skills. They need experienced MLS players to make a deep run." I don't think they need MLS players to make a deep run. I just think they need to get players who are in their prime. They need players who are actually not super young to where they don't really know what they're doing, or they're just not there yet, or guys who are just too damn old. Brian says, "I can't put any heat on any heat." I think he meant any heat on Suarez because he's making pennies. Yeah, I mean, he's making like 1.5, 1.6 million, but you don't need to sign him again. You don't. I mean, I know why you did it this year, but you cannot re-sign him. Cute Kenny says MIA. Really says he will stay because he needs to win a trophy that matters. Butterdog says, "If Messi's friends don't get new contract deals, then Messi might be leaving." That's what I'm thinking. If Messi doesn't, if his friends don't, if Miami says we're ready to move off some of these guys, I'm worried that, well, for Miami's sake, that he's not going to stay. I'm thinking that he might not stay. He's using this as a bargaining chip to say, "Hey, if you don't re-sign my guys, I'm out of here. I'm going back to Argentina." Cute Kenny says Miami should have go for younger players. They have flexibility this summer. Jordi Alba isn't a true DP, or there's a way they can buy him down since it's his last year at the halfway point this summer, and they could sign a young not a young DP, a younger designated player, someone who's not 35, 36 years old. The question is, are they going to do that? Because they were rumored to be signing Kevin De Bruyne. Kevin De Bruyne is going in the wrong direction still. He's too old in that midfield to be effective. And I don't want him there because I want the good players to be spread out to, give people a reason to want to watch other teams play. But Kevin De Bruyne is not going to solve this team's issues. They need someone who's like 25 or 26 years old. They need a striker. One player that I think maybe they should call, or a team they should call, is they should call Lazio and see if they'd be willing to sell Tati Castellanos to them. Because Tati Castellanos has proven he can score in MLS. He's 26 years old. He's got caps with the Argentine national team. That just checks all the boxes. If Lazio is willing to sell Tati Castellanos, I think that would be a great, great signing for Inter Miami. That's who they should be targeting. Jesus says, "Then that's on Messi if he built this team. No one should be above or any team, regardless of any player's name." No, he has got to take some accountability too. He picked these players for the most part. He picked this coach. He picked the last two coaches. So, I mean, this is what he built. Guys, we got 70 people in the chat right now. Make sure you hit that thumbs button up. Like this video down below. I think we're at like 30 right now. Let's try to get to 50 before Favi pops on there. Just text him to see when he is planning to hop in here. So let's try to hit 50. We got 70 of you in here right now. And also subscribe if you haven't already. Michael says, "It sounds like MLS now might miss out on KDB too." Just like I'm not buying the KDB to Liverpool, or was it Roma? And then there was, I think, Napoli. I think he's coming to MLS. So I think he's going to go to Chicago. And someone had reported earlier that he was going to meet with his representatives were going to meet with Chicago at some point this week. So I'm not really worried about KDB going to any other club except Chicago at this point. Cringe says the team needs cohesiveness. They need more playing time, but they also need a few key players. I agree with that. Angel says, "Don't worry, FIFA will help him to get to the Club World Cup." Yeah, and that's another thing. Let's. I want to show you guys this too because this also came out today. So Inter Miami currently have $2 million in GAM, which they had 3.5, I think, when it was last revealed, like 2 months ago. I think 2 months ago, they got 2 million right now, and there's going to be a window where teams can sign players heading into the Club World Cup. I just don't think Messi wants to be embarrassed at the Club World Cup, but he also wants to play with his friends. They're going to have to change the way they're building this team if they don't want to be embarrassed at the Club World Cup in this summer. And the way that they've looked recently, I originally thought that Inter Miami had a real chance of maybe getting out of their group. Maybe getting out of their group, okay? I don't feel that way anymore. I do not feel that way anymore. I think that they will get embarrassed in their group. I do not think they have any chance. I think that they are going to get smoked because their back line is inconsistent. They don't score goals consistently. They're too old or too inexperienced. They just don't have that good combination. And if they sign Kevin De Bruyne or Angel Di Maria, which Favi, when he gets on here, he's in favor of signing Angel Di Maria, which is crazy. You can't sign another guy who is 37 years old. You can't sign another guy who's 37 years old to come on this team that's already so old. That's going in the wrong direction. And I don't think Angel Di Maria would come here for a discount. I think he would want to be paid decently. I don't know if he'd want a DP deal per se, but he's not going to come here for 200 or 300K. So they have to be very smart on who they sign this summer. And they really, I'm telling you, if they get Tati Castellanos, that would be such a great signing. That would be such a great signing for them. And I think it would change the dynamic of this team. If they had a striker who had even a little bit more speed, who has proven he can play in this league. I mean, Tati Castellanos, he scored 19 goals in 2021. He scored 13 goals in half the season and 17 matches in 22 before going to Girona on loan and scored 13 goals in La Liga. He scored 10 goals for Lazio this year, and I think it's 14 and 35 appearances. Now, I don't know if they would sell him, but that's someone I would call to see if they would be interested in doing business. And it's a guy who checks a lot of boxes: age, experience in the league, must be an Argentine international. Does anyone know Baltasar's skills? I had heard that he's more talented than Facundo Frias. I heard that he's more talented than Facundo Frias, but I don't know. He hasn't played yet. They've had these guys that they just haven't integrated into the starting lineup for some reason yet. Rat said this is BS. Messi and his friends need to go. He is above the law in Major League Soccer. LAFC will win the Club World Cup. Yeah, if they win their game against Club America, yeah, that's a pretty rough group. The guy on Inter was 37. He is in the UCL final. The guy on Inter was 37. Which guy are you talking about? Are you talking about Mkhitaryan, I think? He's 35. 35, 36. And that's the thing. All the players around him aren't that old. They've got world-class players in their prime around him. Francisco says the bigger problem is that when Messi and friends leave, there seems that there is no plan B for the future. Yeah, that's a problem too. It would be worse for him. I mean, look, he's going to leave eventually, right? He's not going to stay here forever. The problem is that he cannot leave early. That would be very detrimental to the league. He cannot leave early. Michael Pelly says, are there any younger Argentina national team players they have a realistic chance of signing? Not that I've heard of, but that's another thing too. They have Toto Aviles, who's not even playing. He's a U22 who's not even on the pitch. Federico Redondo does not play every game. I don't even know who their third U22 is because I can't tell if it was Baltasar Rodriguez. Let me pull this back up. I'm curious now. Who is their third U22? Was it Baltasar Rodriguez or Talasco Segovia? Let's see. Okay, it's Talasco Segovia. So Baltasar Rodriguez isn't even technically a U22. So Segovia is the only U22 player who's even starting on this team consistently. So you're young. That's like the nickname for it, young DP, right? Your young DP U22 isn't even playing. Like two of them aren't even starting for you. Let's see, Francisco, no, Michael. If they are in the national team, they already have a ticket for Europe. Jay says Di Maria would be fine as a TAM if they use their U22s on the back line. You can stack up older quality guys in the attack. Yeah, but I don't really trust young guys in the back either because they're just so inexperienced. They're just so inexperienced. I think they should use a U22 spot maybe on a goalkeeper possibly because Ustari is like 39. Use a U22 spot on him. Who should NYCFC sign? Need signings really badly. I don't know. I don't know what their plan is. They've got to get a DP in there at number 10 who can replace what's Santiago Rodriguez. Michael says Glanovich is Argentine youth national, but he is loaned to Philly and currently injured. Keyshawn said, isn't Segovia 22? Yeah, he is. Segovia, Avilés, and Redondo are the U22s. And only one of them are starting. Only one of them are starting. Angelo says DP 10 for NYCFC is a big must. Yeah, I mean, you sold your best player on the opening day and didn't even replace him. And also, too, we have to mention this about Messi, is just the way he looks. He looks very upset. He walked off the pitch after they lost to Vancouver and just looked completely checked out. He looked very upset. He looked very, very upset. Like he just is pissed off. And I honestly think that a big mistake was hiring Javier Mascherano. That was a big mistake. I think you didn't need to hire his friend only. You need to hire someone who would hold him accountable. And I think Xavi would have been a better solution. We got Favian Renkel in here, my guy. Favi, what's going on?
What up, everybody?
Dude, it's been an active chat, dude. We peaked at like 80.
So that's what's up. That's what's up.
I think we got, let's see, we got 36 likes, 36 so far coming in here. Close to 50. Let's try to get to 50. Now we got Favi in the chat. So Favi, you saw the report. Someone reported that Jose Armando reported that Messi is 50-50 on staying in Inter Miami. His deal runs through 2025. All the Barca boys are through 2025. Alba, Suarez, Busquets, and him. Do you think he'll be here next year?
Yeah, honestly, it's tough. It's tough because I never thought he would retire in Miami. So I think this could possibly be Messi and co seeing kind of like the writing on the wall. I mean, possibly, MLS hasn't gone as well as he has planned and the Barca boys has planned. And it seems like maybe they might go for an early retirement. I mean, he's never really been about the all-star game. He's never really been about talking to media here. Honestly, I don't think Messi's really trying to help the game grow in the United States, kind of like how Zlatan was or kind of how other big superstars were, because if he wanted to make the game grow, in my opinion, he would be doing a lot more than what he's currently doing.
Well, I had mentioned this earlier, and I even said that you were on the fence of this, or not on the fence, but on the side of this, that if Messi were to leave after the 2025 season, you could not say that his stint here in MLS was successful, or that Miami's a big club after he leaves, because they've only won Leagues Cup, they've only won Supporters Shield, and he's only played like 30 games.
If he wins MLS Cup, I think it would be go down as a successful run with Inter Miami. Now, was Messi a success for U.S. soccer? I don't think so. I think we were expecting him to kind of run the table in CONCACAF And if he's gone after this season, then that was his CONCACAF run. I mean, he went twice, not a single final in a CONCACAF Champions League. And personally, you see how much people were getting into the CONCACAF Champions League when it was LAFC Inter Miami. People cared about this tournament when Lionel Messi was in it. So, in my opinion, yeah, I can't chalk it up as a win for U.S. soccer or for soccer in the area. But if they do win MLS Cup, I'll say that it was a success for Inter Miami. It's frustrating because when he came, we all thought soccer was going to truly kick off. And you and me have talked about this both, Will, that we all often feel the burnout when it comes to covering this league because at times it can become so frustrating that it's not growing on the path that we both want it to, right? And with Messi leaving possibly, it reminds me of kind of like, shoot, we're gonna go back to a little bit of the dark ages of pre-Messi media. But in reality, you don't even see Messi on ESPN like that, right? It almost makes me think, will soccer ever make it? Like, will it ever make it? I mean, we had the biggest superstar in the world. We had him playing for a team that was fairly attractive with all the superstars they could get. I think soccer's farther away from being a top sport in this country than we all think personally. And if Messi couldn't make a dent in the way sports media is today and the way MLS is set up today, I don't think anyone's really going to push that envelope. No superstar is really going to push that envelope if Messi never did it. So this is a long haul for all the fans that are, liking MLS, and I don't see it changing for at least 20 years.
Damn, 20 years. Well, I think that the Apple TV paywall obviously hurt this. If MLS had been on ESPN or FS1 or CBS, NBC, any of the linear, linear TV, had a linear TV deal is what I'm trying to say, and Messi played a game, it would have exploded. It would have done crazy numbers, right? Probably I really think it would do like Premier League numbers. If Messi's on ESPN or NBC, I mean, it would, right? People would tune in to watch that. But they've just hidden him this whole time. They've hidden him.
What I've realized is how much in the recent years that Messi's been here is how much the American, I'm talking the average American who watches the NFL draft, who watches Pat McAfee, how much the average American relies on a sports media company to deliver their news or to deliver what is popular for them to watch, which is very different, in my opinion, than the soccer fan. The soccer fan has, for years, found a way to watch games either for free, either what programming is it on? Is it on FS2? Like, how are you going to have a Messi CONCACAF Champions Cup game on FS2? I remember you complaining about that earlier in the season. That's just like a slap in the face to all soccer fans and people that want to see a good game. It's almost like all these big linear companies like Fox and ESPN, because of the Apple deal, just shunned MLS completely. Either put them in some sort of FS2 or doesn't even have them on the Sports Center top 10 anymore. I mean, like, let's be honest. I've seen ESPN talk about the NWSL, which is a good thing, more than the First Division Soccer League in men's, right? So I've seen it more clearly that this is all politics and this is all exclusive rights deals. And ESPN, unfortunately, runs it, and they run it heavy, and they truly have the American sports population in their hands. I mean, I could tell you that Stephen A. Smith said this about Pokemon on an episode of whatever show he's on now, rather than how many goals did Messi score in the Champions Cup this year, because that's what's the American sports media. I mean, Pat McAfee today was a great show. I like the guy. Was talking about the Pope draft. Like, what? Like, are you serious right now? So this landscape of sports media is completely changing too at the same time. I see more about wrestling than MLS soccer these days. on linear sports media. So I can't give all the blame to Messi because in reality, he did come here. But if this guy was like Zlatan, if we had Zlatan today, the guy would be tagline after tagline after tagline. He'd be like, basically, no matter what politics you think of, Trump is like a Zlatan, in my opinion, polarizing whether you like him or not. And in this media, in this kind of way the American mind is thinking these days, taglines are everything. And a superstar like Messi that doesn't say anything, doesn't say much, is visibly frustrated on the field, is not going to capture the attention of the American sports fan. And especially not if no one is covering it.
No, I definitely agree with that. He's a very quiet person, but he always has been. I went to the mall today with my wife, and I saw a bunch of Messi gear all over the mall. I saw his jersey in certain stores. I saw his cologne, and I think it was either Belk or J.C. Penney. I just saw his cleats at Dick's Sporting Goods, where they had, his face trying to in an Argentine jersey trying to sell his new cleats. I mean, I see him everywhere. I saw him in like 3 or 4 different stores in one place, right? So I mean, he's everywhere. But like they do a better job of selling him outside of the game than when he's actually in the game.
I agree with you on that. I would say he's a better businessman today than he is a soccer player.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they've done a better job at least selling him outside of the game than when he's actually playing.
Right.
And it just feels like kind of like I wanted to hit on this point that you made earlier about the dark days before Messi. Dude, the dark days, we only had 6 months of Apple TV MLS before he came here. We only had 6 months to experiment with that. And the numbers were not good. They still aren't good, but they were really, really, really not good at that point. They were bad. Okay. If Messi leaves or whenever he does leave and they don't have a backup plan, a contingency plan, whatever in place, dude, these numbers are going to get even worse. There's already several reports, Favi, that Apple wants to pull out of the deal early. And this is with Messi here. So what are they going to do when he leaves?
Well, the deal was personally, I never thought it was going to go 10 years because the way inflation works, the way money kind of works, the revenues, whenever I see a deal that long, I never think either party is going to stick because one pulls out, they get better negotiating power. So whenever we thought that 10-year deal in total was going to happen, I personally thought it wasn't. We're not talking about the NFL here. We're not talking about the NBA where this is like a boatload of guaranteed money, right? Where it's valuable for them to stay in a long-term deal because they're always going to be the top dog. Soccer is a different position. So if MLS pulls out of Apple, I think it's in a better spot. Personally, Apple hasn't been what we all thought it was going to be either. It's almost like Messi coming was subpar in terms of media and growth. And Apple, while the production is great, and while everybody likes, watching every game, they haven't done a good job advertising anything. But maybe, okay, I'll give them this. Making Messi the Super Bowl ad and football after football, I was hyped. Okay. The start of the season happened. That was such a good ad. Apple finally just hit their bread and butter. They said, have Messi just juggling a football. Boom. Done. Simple. That's the only time I felt like MLS and Apple did a great job marketing to the average sports fan. And personally, I just don't think that Apple truly believed in MLS like we all thought they would have. They saw it more as an investment instead of something where it was like, hey, you like soccer in America? Well, we have the #1 league. You need to be on Apple TV. The paywall, the MLS Plus paywall was probably one of the worst moves. The MLS rights is probably a drop in the bucket for Apple, and making a separate paywall for it was one of the worst moves. They could have easily thrown it into the Apple TV subscription. And you know what? They probably would have got more monthly subscriptions and they just would have called it their budget for Apple TV, right? Like that probably took the sales out of everything personally. And then the documentaries came out just a little too late.
Too late. They were good, but too late.
Yeah. And then how do you have a documentary without your biggest people in there? Yes, I understand You want to build up Kevin Sullivan. You want to build up the other guys, Matt Biazga, but they're kind of irrelevant. Show me a Vander. Show me Chicho Arango.
What about how the fact they came out a year later when they happened? A year late.
Show me Josef. Like, show me a guy who's famous in their own country. All credit to Kevin Sullivan. He's going to have a great career. And Matt Miazga had a great career too. But they're not Josef of Venezuela.
Well, let me ask you something real quick, Favi, about this real quick. I've been thinking my brain has been churning here a little bit since we've been talking about this. I'm cool with the Apple TV deal if that was where all the games that weren't on prime time were at.
Yeah.
Obviously, when you buy Sunday Ticket or NBA League Pass, they're not going to have all the games in the NBA are not only on League Pass. Those are the games that aren't the primetime games, right? The games that are on TNT or ESPN or ABC. That's where they put the other games on that you see their local broadcasts. So if all the games that weren't the primetime games were on Apple TV, cool, that makes sense, right? A good place for all the games to be where you can find them all. But the primetime games, like the NFL has CBS and Fox for their I mean, they're not the primetime games, but if your local markets, it's where you watch your games, right? But they pay for ESPN pays for one game a week, a primetime game a week. NBC pays for one primetime game a week. Amazon pays for one primetime game a week. MLS should have had a deal like that where one primetime game a week was on the big network. So that way you still had, now I know it's on Fox Sports 1 sometimes. It's on Fox sometimes, but that's not really the same. They should have done a deal where they could play one primetime, maybe two primetime games a week on the big network so people still can watch an MLS game.
You know what deal I missed the most out of all of them? The games that were on Univision. Because, in my opinion, the Mexican soccer fan, at least on the West Coast, is just important to MLS than the American soccer fan. Because on the West Coast, you have, let's kind of put this in perspective. You have a Mexican soccer fan, maybe Mexican American, that already is okay watching not the best form of soccer, right? You already have a Mexican-American soccer fan that's willing to blow loads of cash to go see America play or Chivas play or even Cruz Azul or Pumas, right? You need to appeal to them first, in my opinion. You needed to show Liga MX that, hey, we're your competitor. You're going to want to watch games to find out where Matias Bogusz came from, where Giamakis came from. And I think they lost that first. I think that was something that MLS should have looked at as, whoa, dude, we need to pump our Spanish content. Either give our games for free on Univision, do more double headers with Liga MX games, do something on those Latin networks that, in my opinion, you would gain tons of fans overnight that, one, will start to respect your league, and two, will maybe start to respect the CONCACAF Champions League a little bit more too. And then on top of that, once you have the respect, then you're going to get the casuals, in my opinion. Because if you have even the Mexican Americans hating on MLS or the Mexican fan hating on MLS, that's a tough sell to a casual, in my opinion.
No, I agree. Fabi, we got 74 in the chat. We're 4 likes away from 50. Let's hit 50 likes. So close. Also, guys, we're like 380 subs away from 7K. That's the next goal we're trying to hit. 10Ks in the year. So subscribe to the channel. If you haven't already, share the channel with a friend. We're trying to grow this and get this thing to 10K by the end of the year. But let's hit that 7K first, hopefully by the end of this month. Subscribe if you haven't already and hit that little bell notification so you never miss a video.
And this is something that's coming from my personal background. I want to kind of add this.
Yeah, go ahead.
Latin parents, at least 5 years ago, or maybe a couple years ago, had a hard time kind of maybe having cable, had a hard time using the streaming networks. What would it cost to have just had a couple games every week on Univision? Because they're going to pop it on. I mean, I lived in Japan where, I didn't know the main language. I kind of understood a little bit what it was to be an immigrant in a country where you don't know the language. You're going to just kind of float to what reminds you of home, and that's why Channel 14, Univision, Telemundo, they get so many viewers, even though they're not on cable. because on the West Coast we have a huge population of Latin Americans. Throw games on there. Like, how much would it really bother you if Charlotte versus Seattle was on there? Like, are we really worried about this? Like, what does it cost? Why hasn't that been done? You're gonna grow your fan base once Cruz Azul plays against Seattle in the CONCACAF Champions League. They're already gonna be well-known names to that market. I thought losing the Univision deal was actually probably the worst part about it, because the American fan, because they know a lot about technology, since they've always had to know it to watch games, in my opinion, would have found the games. But the whole Spanish side of things, I think it was definitely a lot harder to make that transition. And then they just went back to watching Liga MX games because they were on Univision, right? Like, I know for a fact my dad watches tons of Chivas games because they're always on, So it's interesting. What was that comment you brought up about ESPN Plus and ESPN? I thought that was pretty interesting. That covered me.
About what now?
About the ESPN deal. You had a comment up that covered like my whole face, but it was an interesting one.
ESPN. Let's see. Are you talking about this one, Michael Pelly?
Yeah.
The MLS coverage on ESPN and Fox feels minor league. NBC and Peacock and CBS Paramount Soccer cover looks way better and more important.
I agree, but
Yeah.
I also think MLS is really young. So that really, like, for example, if you look at the Paramount coverage of the game, they have personalities. They have Thierry Henry. They have not Traore, Micah Richards, right? Micah Richards.
Yeah, I think so.
Micah Richards. They have banter. They have famous superstars. Unfortunately, with MLS, there hasn't been so many years and so many personalities. It's hard to find good talking heads, and that's the toughest part.
They suck. Let's be completely honest, right? And I'm not hating on these individuals as people. I'm talking about them talking about the game. I think
the hardest thing to do, Will, I'm not going to say they suck, but the hardest thing to do is to banter, and it doesn't feel fabricated. When people watch Paramount and they're roasting Thierry Henry, that seems not
legit, right? Like it seems genuine, right?
It seems genuine.
Yeah, but when you think about it, right? And maybe I'm just being hypercritical about this, but it's nothing against Kalen Kyle or Dax McCarty or Sasha Kleshtin, but most people don't even know who they are. Let's be honest. Most average soccer fans don't know who they are.
I would say Bradley Wright Phillips is probably the biggest name on there.
He is, but lately the panel has just been Kalen Kyle, Dax McCarty, and Sasha Kleshtin. And on top of that, they really don't have any personality.
I know this person is very polarizing, but shoot, throw Alexi Lalas on that.
Of course, that would be entertaining at least, right?
And you know what? You know who he had great chemistry with during the World Cup was Fernando Fiore, and they would go off on each other. I personally like the Lalas and Fernando Fiore combo just because it's just chaos. You need chaos. And in my opinion, if you're not roasting each other, if you're not yelling at each other, if you're not, having heated arguments, it's a hard watch. Personally, call Bradley Wright Phillips. Tell him to bring his brother on. I would want to see two brothers going at it because it would seem a little bit more genuine, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, it's boring. But let's
look at the Manning cast. Those are two brothers just going back and forth. It's like one of the most popular shows.
No, it is. A lot of people watch that instead of the actual ESPN cast. They'll watch the Manning brothers break it down. But as far as Messi, right? I want to get back onto Messi because this is a important part of it. Even though the Apple TV and all that obviously is part of it too, because the people watching him and seeing if this is a success. My prediction is he will resign. And I don't even know if we talked about this, Fabi, but I talked about this about myself earlier. He is trying to leverage his guys being re-signed with him because all of the Barca boys are out of contract at the end of the 2025 season along with him. And I don't think he wants to stay there without them. I think his whole thinking is if I'm staying, they're staying.
Jordi Alba's deal is the weirdest one. If it runs out in 2025, why did they backload a DP contract for him? Right? It's almost like were they expecting the fourth DP rule to come?
I think so, but also too, you have to keep this in mind. the way his deal works is that at the halfway point, he only has 6 months remaining on his deal. So if let's just say hypothetically he's making $3.5 million this year. I don't know what his number is, but
We
just
don't know. Nobody knows it yet. MLSPA hasn't
nobody knows what it is. But let's just say it's $3.5 million, right? If it's $3.5 million at the halfway point, because he only has 6 months remaining on his deal, he can technically be bought down because that's 1.75 mil is a max TAM deal. So Jordi Alba, even though he's a DP, he had to be a DP through the first part of the season. He can still technically be bought down. But if you were to re-sign him, there's no way you can give him a DP deal in 2026. You cannot give Sergio Busquets a DP deal in 2026. He's making $10 million a year. He has not lived up to the $10 million a year. He's not that salary. He has not lived up to that salary.
He's definitely probably, if I had to say one of them's the biggest flop, Busquets has to be there.
Well, the chat earlier were saying that they thought Busquets was really good, and I do think he's been pretty good, but he hasn't been worth $10 million. Fabi, the most important thing you can do in soccer is score goals. Luis Suarez scored 20 last year. He only made 1.5 mil. Sergio Busquets does not score goals, and he made 10 million. He is definitely overpaid.
He hasn't been horrible, but in terms of the numbers, has been a flop for sure.
He has. No, he has been a flop.
Because Jordi Alba's made history in Leagues Cup. I know this is as funny as it sounds, but the guy had four or five, I think it was 4 assists in a match. I mean, the guy has been good for Inter Miami. Suarez and Messi won an MVP. Suarez played astronomically relative to his money that he made last year. So it has to be Busquets, unfortunately.
Yeah, and they need to give Messi, they need to give him players in their prime. They need to give him players who are between the ages of 25 and 30, not guys who are too young or too old.
I think all Inter Miami fans and all fans of the league would be happy if they all came back at TAM deals. Maybe Suarez retires, but if Jordi Alba and Busquets came back on TAM,
that'd be okay.
That would be out of the world. I mean, you put Busquets in the back line, then you put Yannick Bright in the actual starting lineup. It could work.
But Suarez is done, right? We agree. He's done. He's not.
Yeah, I don't think this is his last hurrah for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he can make another season.
Honestly, this is what MLS should be doing. They should be saying like, "This is Suarez's last hurrah." Like, what do we like? We should be, a little bit like the writing is on the wall. Everybody, he just had his 20th season or 20th year as a professional. Like in Uruguay, they're all going crazy about it. See, that's the stuff that nobody's talking about it. I mean, we could only do so much as talking heads, but Apple TV should be like, all right, Suarez, 20 years of being a professional. Here are his best goals in MLS. And then just drop drop the video on Apple TV and it's content. Boom. Like, I don't know. There's so many things that I feel like could be the easiest thing to do sometimes. Have a sit down with Messi or do a nice little video. Like, I don't know.
No, I agree.
Have Suarez on camera talking about his favorite moments with Messi. That seems like easy content. He does it for free with podcasters.
They just don't do that kind of stuff. And I just don't think
people say they've wrenched. How do I say this? They twisted dry every Messi content possible already, which I don't think is true.
They milked it dry.
They milked it dry. Excuse me.
Yeah.
But I actually think they haven't done enough Messi content for what the amount of people that bring him to the table. You don't think if let's be honest, if Apple TV put the same amount of money they did into their series with Kevin Sullivan and just talk to Suarez and Busquets and Jordi Alba about their favorite Messi moments or moments they played together, that would be like The Last Dance. What are they doing? Like, it's too easy.
But this is okay. See this picture right here? I got right here in front of us.
Yeah.
This is their advertising of Messi. That's it. A picture. That's all they do. That's it. They just plaster his face everywhere. They don't do any like video content or anything like that. They just post his picture and say Messi, Messi, Messi. That's it. So there really hasn't been.
It doesn't seem genuine, right? It seems kind of.
It's like a novelty.
Yeah, it seems like a kind of like a, hey, we have this crazy show pony. We're not going to show you anything about him or how he became a show pony or the people talking about the show pony, but we're going to, show you a poster of it. I agree. I agree. It doesn't seem, it seems hollow, the coverage of Messi, in my opinion. And that's probably why people are mad, because it feels like a cheap buck instead of investing in, using him to grow it to the actual sports media.
Yeah, and oh, man, Favi, he'll probably stay in 2026, but man, this just feels like the leadership of Major League Soccer has just done a poor job of this whole thing. You know how I feel about a certain person we will not name, but it just feels like this has been a huge whiff 2 years later, and I don't feel like we've improved anything or grown the league as much as we should. And like you said too, you said this to me. You said that this is going to be, look, maybe Messi looks back, or we look back on this Messi experiment and disappoint, and like a missed opportunity, right? Not, I mean, if he wins MLS Cup, sure, that could change a lot. But if
Actually,
he
a
wins
missed
MLS Cup,
opportunity, even if he wins MLS Cup, I still would think it's gonna be because what during their playoff run, it's not gonna be on ESPN. It's not gonna be on Sports Center. It's not gonna be anywhere but Apple TV. So personally, the missed opportunity already happened. The Messi mania already went away.
yeah, and if he leaves after 2025, the league is just so cooked. It is cooked, and it's not because. And I know a lot of fans in the league are anti-Messi and anti-Miami, and I totally understand that. That's good though. Hating a team is good for the league. That's a good thing for everybody to uniform and hate one team, one player, right? That is good to have a villain of the league. But if he leaves, I mean, there are a lot of people who do pay attention to the league because of him. That's just a fact. It's just a fact. And who are they going to replace him with? Who are they going to sign in the summer or in the winter of 2026? Who are they going to sign? There's not going to be anybody. So, and also too, we didn't even talk about this. They're supposed to open their stadium at the beginning of the 26 season. Could you imagine if he left and he wasn't there to open their brand new stadium, which has been the plan this whole time?
Yeah,
That would be a disaster.
Yeah, it'd be insane.
That'd be a disaster. And someone joked earlier in the chat. I'm sorry I didn't pull it up at the time, but someone said, "Yeah, he's leaving." He says, "The hell with Miami Stadium. I'm going to go open up Camp Nou when it reopens next year after it's like $2 billion or €2 billion renovation that they did for the stadium." But I think something will get done. He does seem a little discontent right now. We'll track and see how he feels for the rest of the season. It's only May, guys. There's still potentially 7 months left of the season if his team makes the playoffs, and which they will, but makes the MLS Cup final, which I don't know if they will. Then we will see how things transpire and what kind of moves they make this summer. But
doesn't he kind of seem a little bit more robotic this year than he was in the 2 years prior? Like when he scores, he barely shows any emotion anymore, in my opinion. I don't know. To me, he's
not as happy as he was in the beginning.
No, 100%. He seems more out of it this season than he's ever looked in pink, personally.
I agree. I don't know. It's just weird, and I don't think that Javier Mascherano was the right coach to hold him accountable and keep things together.
You think everyone thinks that he brought in Javier Mascherano?
Of course he did.
You think he did?
Of course.
Or do you think it was Inter Miami trying to persuade him that hey, we're going to bring in a coach that you know?
Well, I think it was they try to persuade him by saying, "Who do you want us to bring in?" And then they said, "Well, I like Javi. I like Mascherano." But they should have brought in like Xavi, someone he knows, but someone he'll respect, someone that he can hold him accountable, challenge him. I think Javier Mascherano does whatever he wants. Like, let's let him do whatever he wants. Like, do you think Javier Mascherano is pushing Messi or challenging him? I don't think he is. I think Tata Martino probably did.
I don't know if this is a quote or if I'm remembering it wrong, but I remember he was saying it was hard to tell him to do anything. And I think it was maybe Franco Panizo posted it earlier in the season, but yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I remember him saying, "Yeah, it's a little tough to kind of tell them what to do and then coach the younger guys."
I mean, it is. It's different. It's different. A different set of circumstances and set of rules, right? But I think that Tata Martino, whether you agree or disagree, like if he should be doing this, I don't think he's afraid to say, hey, I don't think you should play this game, or hey, you need to do this. Like, I think he probably did hold Messi accountable. And maybe that's why they didn't get along. Maybe that's why there was a rift between the two. But I do think Tata Martino, because he's an older guy, right? Normally older people
Coached
aren't
him
played.
before too.
Coached him twice before,
Yeah.
national team and Barcelona. Maybe he just wasn't afraid to say, "Hey, listen, Messi, you don't need to play this game. Hey, Messi, you need to do this better. Hey, you need to look for this guy."
Hey, I know you want to hit that record, but you got 20 minutes to come off the field. He wasn't scared to sub him off. It seems like Mascherano is scared to sub him off.
And was Messi playing better? Okay, this isn't like a small sample size. He only played 20 games for Tata Martino last year. It wasn't like he played 30, right? He played 20 games for Tata Martino in 2024. He's played 10 games for Javier Mascherano through the 2025 season. Which Messi's look better?
Oh, 100% Tata Martino's.
Yes.
The guy would come on the field and completely change the game. Made history, right? Like, we haven't even talked about Messi making history this year.
Or winning MVP?
Right. Like he's not even in conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, no, how many times have you heard them say, could he win it back to back?
Right.
Could he be the two-time win MVP 2 times in a row for the first time?
MVP is a little wonky because they were saying Suarez was the MVP when they were on that crazy. When he didn't score in like 7 games, but they were on like crazy win streak, right? So MVP is completely bonkers in MLS.
I'm gonna do a poll question late, and we'll wrap it up here in a second.
Well, how are you gonna wrap it up without getting 100 likes? What's going on? We got to get to 100, right?
Listen, we've only gained 1 sub, guys. Listen, I know most of you aren't subbed to the channel, so subscribe if you haven't already. We're trying to hit that 7K. You need to sub up, stay subbed up, send it to a friend. We got to hit that 10K by the end of the year. We got to hit that 7K by the end of this month. So subscribe if you haven't already, and like this video down below. Like Favi said, we're at 53 likes. We got to get to 100, and I know we'll do that. When I wake up tomorrow, I guarantee that we will be at 100. But Favi, do you think that Messi is honestly going to play at the Club World Cup?
Oh yeah, 100%. I think he is.
I don't know, man. I
think Infantino is making that call.
I think he probably will, but I could see something happening where he doesn't.
He's not in the All-Star game, that's for sure.
Oh no, that's never happening.
Yeah.
No.
The All-Star game this year is going to be a weird one because the superstars of Liga MX, like Sergio Ramos and James, they're going to be at the Club World Cup too. So that's another topic for another day. But the All-Star game, man, you guys should have chosen a completely different approach this year, in my opinion.
We will see what happens with that. But Favi, listen, we're gonna wrap it up here. We went 1 hour and 5 minutes. There's gonna be more streams we do together because me and you always do some streams, especially when the transfer window comes up either in the winter or the summer. So we'll have you back. Before I let you go, any final thoughts?
Yeah, man. I don't think there's anything to save Messi's career in MLS. I think it's going to be labeled as a disappointment anyway. They can win MLS Cup. It could be a good tenure for Inter Miami. But in terms of all the ambition we had for growing the sport in the United States, I think his tenure here is already labeled a disappointment.
A failure? Yeah.
Not a failure, because maybe Messi mania at the beginning was something that captured the American audience, and it at least captured it for
I don't want to
lightning in a bottle. Leagues Cup the first year, or the first real year, was great. Like,
the hype is insane.
I can't label that a disappointment or a failure. I can't label that a failure, but I'll label it a disappointment. It's a little bit higher than failure.
Well, how about, I got a better word that I think would sum up how we feel. How about underwhelming?
Underwhelming. Yep, exactly.
Because we had expectations.
Yeah.
And we have been wooed a little bit, but not as much as we thought we would be.
Yeah.
I feel like if we say disappointed, it means like we never had any sense of feeling at all. Like we just kind of like, it was never good. We're disappointed in the whole thing. I'm underwhelmed. I expected more.
Do Do you think we got that Messi trophy too early?
I'm not gonna say what I was thinking in my head, but yeah, yeah,
Do you
yeah.
think the American audience said, "Well, he won the trophy. The season's over"?
Well, I don't know about that, but it was just like lightning in a bottle. You had Messi coming to
Right.
America, Liga MX playing in this tournament against all MLS teams for the first time on US soil. It was just like I really can't say what I'm thinking. You know, the expression I would think for this, but yes, too quick. Yes, too quick, too fast, too much, too fast.
Hey, man, it reminds me of when I was young, you know?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. But you know what I'm saying? Yeah, just way too quick. Way too
Yeah.
quick. It was just too much that you gotta enjoy the moment a
And
little bit, you know?
everybody would call that a disappointment too.
Yeah, for sure, especially your ex. Yeah, I think that's a good place to end it, Favi. We will see what happens. There's gonna be more stuff to come. I'm gonna drop a video on Sunday about 5 teams MLS who have to have a big summer transfer window. So that should be an interesting video. Favi, before I let you go, where can the people follow you at?
You can find me at Favian Renkel. I'm one of the only people on Threads. If you guys want to follow me on Threads,
He really is.
yeah. But I'm on Twitter as well. You can find my work. Hey, since everybody here is an American soccer fan, support local soccer. Enjoy a game. Go to the U.S. Open Cup.
100%. Make sure you check him out on Threads, Twitter, X, Instagram, everywhere he is. Favi, appreciate you for coming on. Guys, make sure you like this video down below. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit the little bell notification so you never miss a video. And until next time, guys, I will see you all soon.